Welcome to today's episode of Real Estate in Kenya. My name is Sarah Wahogo, CEO at Username Investment Limited. During our last episode with Wakili, we delve into the law of matrimonial properties in Kenya, and today is a continuation. Wakili,
Yes.
last time we introduced this law,
Yes.
and we'll just dive deeper
Yes.
into this discussion.
Yes.
And the first question is, what laws apply to the division of matrimonial properties in Kenya?
When it comes to laws, of course, there is the supreme law, the Constitution of Kenya. And in terms of the Constitution, we are looking at Article 45, Sub-Article 3 of the Constitution, which provides that parties are equal at the time they are entering a marriage. They have equal rights. And then during the marriage, in course of the marriage, and at the time of dissolution of the marriage, the Constitution provides that in course of the entire union or contract of marriage, the spouses have equal rights. Then we have the Matrimonial Property Rights Act. Now this is the law that provides for the rights of spouses in respect to properties that they acquire during marriage. So the major provisions are the provisions of the Constitution and the Matrimonial Properties Act. Of course, now then there are the court decisions of the interpretation of those laws. They will also help in guiding or determining how now these property rights are determined at the time of dissolution of marriage.
Okay.
Yes.
During our last video,
Yes.
you talked about contribution
Yes.
in matrimonial property.
Yes.
Please enlighten us more.
Yeah. Though the Constitution, Article 45, Sub-Article 3 provides of equality, this is misinterpreted. And I remember this debate when the Constitution was being passed, and now that misconception still exists to date, that at the time of dissolution of marriage, that property is shared 50-50. But that is not the case. The court looks, when distributing or dividing matrimonial property after divorce, the court looks at contribution of each party. And when it comes to contribution, there is monetary, which is direct contribution. If you contributed towards acquisition of that property, that is a factor that is taken into account. Then there is also non-monetary, or what is known as indirect contribution. And indirect contribution now is not measured in terms of money. It is contribution in other forms, like management of a matrimonial home. You are the spouse who stays home and looks after the family and looks after the children. There is companionship. There may be, management of a family business where you do not get a direct benefit in terms of a salary, but the profits or the proceeds coming out of the family business are used to acquire and develop the matrimonial properties, so that then that becomes a relevant factor in deciding what you have contributed. Yes.
Usually things are so good
Yes.
until when
it comes to that and parties have to go their separate ways. Yes, it happens.
Yeah, it happens, and
Yes.
probably that is why so many people could be watching this video.
Yes.
So my question is, how is matrimonial property shared in case of a divorce?
In case of a divorce, it is, of course, for those rights to accrue, first there has to be a divorce. You have gone through a formal process of divorce. You have a decree of divorce, a decree absolute. The one that says it's final, you are done, and each party can go their own way. Then that's when you approach to the court and tell the court, now, during the subsistence of our marriage, we acquired these properties, and this is my proposal on how I would want these properties subdivided, so that those rights do not accrue until you have formally gone through the process of divorce. When it comes to now dividing, it is the court to decide, and each party is supposed to lead evidence of what I contributed. If a property is registered in the name of one spouse, then the other spouse will be required to demonstrate or provide evidence of their contribution either towards acquisition, that is buying, or towards developing. For instance, there might be a plot of land, there are rental flats or rental houses. One party may own the land, but the other party contributed towards development of that property. So that is a relevant factor. Or it's a matrimonial home, one party acquired it and the other party contributed towards development of that matrimonial property. So the court will look at all those factors. Then if a property is jointly registered, the first presumption of the law is that if a property is registered in the joint names of the husband and the wife, that property is equally owned. It is 50-50. Unless now one party brings evidence to show that I contributed more towards acquisition of that property. So that is how the court deals with it. It is not an exact mathematical equation or formula that it's 50-50, it is 70-30. The court will look at all those considerations and arrive at what is fair, because at the end of the day, it is what matters is fairness and equity. Because you can't buy a property, let's say, for 20 million. The other spouse did not contribute anything, and then you just take it as 50-50. I mean, there would not be fairness in that, because people would enter marriages just to to come out with wealth or property.
Okay.
Yes.
So the question of contribution
Yes.
becomes very
It
critical.
is very important. It is very critical in yeah. But it again, it is the court to evaluate that evidence of contribution. If there are records, well and good. You know, there are people who are very meticulous in keeping records. But if there are no records, the court will evaluate now the evidence of contribution.
Just a question out. I mean, a wife who is a housewife,
Yes.
who has been taking care of the kids,
Yes.
how do you prove?
Of course, you are a spouse. I mean, you are a spouse, and these are now the factors that we are saying the court will consider non-monetary, because that is taken to be a contribution. I am the spouse staying home with the kids, and ensures that your suit is taken to the dry cleaners, your shirts are ironed, your shoes are polished, the kids are prepared for school. When you come back in the evening, there is a hot shower, there is a meal for you. That is contribution. I am working, I am contributing towards your advancement. Yeah.
So my question is, how do you prove that to the
That,
court? That actually you
as long as I am able to demonstrate that I was sitting at home while you are out there working, the court will consider that as contribution. Now it is now the court now to come up with a formula of saying now, okay, you are staying home at home, the other spouse was working, your percentage is maybe 20-30%, while the other spouse takes the rest, the biggest share. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I know this is a very long topic.
Yes.
Maybe we may not be able to exhaust.
Yes.
But viewers, if you have any questions, clarifications, comments, please feel free to comment so that Wakili can take
Yes.
it up and we can cover during our next video. My last question, Wakili,
Yes.
in cases where in a marriage there are more than one wives,
Yes.
how is property shared?
That's an interesting one, and the Matrimonial Properties Act, how it deals with it is that the first wife, any property that is acquired with the first wife before the second or the third wife came, is treated as the property of the first wife and the husband. So that property is equally shared between the husband and the first wife, of course subject to the contribution of each spouse. Now, the properties that are acquired when there is the second and third wife, the property is equally owned or shared between the husband and the wives. There may be 2 wives, 3 wives, but then again also the court will look at the question of contribution.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
so that no one lives with nothing.
Okay.
But of course, now the first wife may have contributed more or may have stayed longer and gets the bigger share.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Don't know what our viewer you think. So thank you so much, Wakili.
You're
As
welcome.
usual, we really appreciate your time
Yes.
and for enlightening us on some of these very important
You're
matters.
welcome.
Viewers, we have come to the end of our episode today. Thank you so much for watching. See you in our next video.
Thank you.